If you've been with us at all, you obviously know we're in Advent. We've been lighting the candles. We've been going through sermon series coming up to Christmas when Colby will be talking on the Christmas story. And last week, if you were here, Colby spoke about how Jesus comes as the same as us. How he comes to our earth as a baby. And our Creator was subjected to the same human experience that we've all had. And Colby always likes to say this thing, and I don't know where he got it from, maybe somewhere, or it's his, I'm not sure. He moved into our neighborhoods, and he walked our streets. He came to our doors. He was our neighbor. That's what Colby's talking about, how he's the same as us. And he comes in a way into this world that's complicated, it's hard, but it's empowering. And it was all for love. That Jesus came into this world for love. And it's not a love that like we might know. It's not just the I love this or I love you, but it's a perfect love. A love that we actually can't necessarily fully understand, but we try to. And that's what we try to understand at this season. And so as we continue through Advent, I'm going to be talking on the super famous passage of John 3:16. You might know it, you might not. I'm just going to read it quick. It says, "For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." Okay, I'm just going to do a quick experiment. Can you actually raise your hand if you know that passage? Or if you've memorized it? Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That was almost 100%. And if not, that's fine. But I guarantee you've heard that passage or you know it and you're like, yeah, good, great, Levi, you're going to preach on the most famous passage in Scripture. Well, guess what? Colby told me to. But it's a very important passage to understand. Because I think we do that. We blow by it because we're like, man, I've just heard this already. I get it. God loves. Very cool, right? But okay, let's look at some places. I'm going to have it up on the screen where culture knows this verse and they get this and they talk about it. Forever 21, if you know what that is, it's a place that maybe used to be hip. I'm not sure if it is anymore. But they use this verse on their bags that they make. When you go buy something, it's on the bottom of their bag. If you know who Justin Bieber is, he uses the famous audio clip. This one's for Pierre. Billy Graham. "For God so loved the world that whoever believeth in him," I can't even say it like him. He uses that in his album. Tim Tebow, an NFL player, he painted it under his eyes. John 3:16. The Simpsons make reference to John 3:16. In-N-Out Burger has the verse that's subtly written on the bottom of their like pop cups, soda cups. So when you're just crushing that Coke, destroying yourself, John 3:16, saving someone else. It's not, I didn't make it up, they did it. People who know nothing about God know this verse. People who don't care about God know this verse, hear this verse. We hear it. And the reason it's so popular, because it's like reading a news headline, right? It's the like snapshot of why we believe what we believe. For God so loved in this way, he sent his only Son. He gave him freely. And if you believe in him, that takes action, belief, you will not perish but have eternal life. It's a snapshot of the entire Bible, basically, of like, why does this matter? This is why this matters. I feel like I could stop right now because I read the verse. And it's pretty simple. Like it's not, I don't necessarily have to go into it. It's pretty face value. It really is. And we read it and we know that because God is love, that he gave the only gift that matters, and he creates a way forward out of our condemnation. Because we can read it at face value, but there's so much more behind it. There's so much more to it. I know for myself, when I hear something too much, it just loses all meaning. It loses value. And maybe I've heard this verse too much. And I was thinking, like, when's the last time that God in my life, maybe in your life, has he dug something up for me from his promises, from his word, from the things in Scripture? When's the last time you read something you're like, maybe this should mean more to me than it actually does? And I kind of had that moment because I'm reading this verse and I'm like, really, Colby, this is what I have to talk about? It's like, what do I talk about? I'm done now. But there's so much more to it. There's so much more when you look into it. What's behind it? And so I want to take us to the context of John 3. And you might have heard of a guy named Nicodemus. That's where John 3 starts. And Nicodemus was a Pharisee. He comes to Jesus at night because he doesn't want his buddies and the religious rulers to know that he's visiting Jesus, to ask him questions. And he doesn't come to condemn him or to contest him. He comes because he's curious, because Jesus has been teaching now for a while, and something's resonating with Nicodemus that he doesn't really understand, and he's curious. He needs to come ask Jesus what he's talking about. And it's interesting because he would have been the teacher of the law. He's an influential guy. He knows a lot of stuff. He knows a lot. He would have had memorized tons of the Old Testament Torah, actually probably all of it. And he knew the prophecies, he knew the promises, and yet he's still coming to question Jesus. And so he comes and he says, Jesus, like, what are you talking about? And Jesus sort of ignores him and says, you need to be born again, which is a whole other conversation of a born-again Christian. And Nicodemus kind of says, what, you want me to crawl into my mother's womb and just be born again? Like, that's not possible, Jesus. And he says, obviously you don't get it spiritually. You can know everything, but you are so spiritually immature that you don't understand. You don't get it. Do you ever feel like Nicodemus? Just to start this, do you ever feel like Nicodemus? Where you come before Jesus all the time. In a season like Christmas, you're like, I get it. Like, we do Christmas and then it's Jesus' birth and people like buy him birthday cakes, but do you really get it? Like, you know all this knowledge, but are you spiritually attuned with Christ and with his Spirit? Do you spiritually desire him and actually want to be changed and to see him fulfill his promises in your life? And sometimes I think we resonate with Nicodemus, that we ask all the questions, we're curious, we come to him, we want to know the things. Maybe we've been Christians our whole lives, or we're a new Christian. There's deal breakers in the Bible that we can't just trust because, well, the Bible says this and that doesn't really jive with what I believe. You know the right answers. Maybe you're hard on yourself with religiosity, but your life hasn't changed. It's always the same. You have curiosity, but maybe not enough to care about what faith actually is, what it means. And I think about that, how my life is often like Nicodemus's. And Nicodemus stood before the light of the world in the flesh, and he didn't get it. The light of the world, the one who brings life. And he doesn't get it. And we come before this famous verse, and we're standing before a promise of God's love, one that exceeds all of our understanding, expectation. We're standing before the Son that was freely given, and we're standing before kind of a challenge. There's a bit of a challenge in this verse that whoever believes in him will have everlasting life. It's not just whoever thinks he's a good guy or whoever hopes in him. It actually requires action. So Nicodemus eventually continues asking some questions, and Jesus foreshadows some things to come, trying to help him understand, I'd say. Like, he's going to bring in the Old Testament for Nicodemus to help him get what he's trying to tell him. So in John 3, verses 14 to 15, right before John 3:16, Jesus says to Nicodemus, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. Jesus speaks Nicodemus' language, and that's what I love. That's kind of what Colby was talking about last week. Jesus speaks our language. The scripture tells us the promises. We can understand. It's not like it's a mystery. There are some things about God that are mysteries. But he talks in ways we can know, in ways we understand, in life experiences. That's why he came and he lived. And he's talking to Nicodemus And he mentions, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. And what he's talking about is a passage from Numbers 21, which Nicodemus would have known well. And this is what happened in Numbers 21. If you know this, great. If not, I'm going to explain it. If you know the Exodus story at all of Israel, they left Egypt and they went to the wilderness in the desert and they were wandering. And they had this thing where they would always rebel against God, right? Like they just could not follow his commands. They see a pillar by day and fire by night that leads them, and oh my goodness, we're rebelling again. It really is a crazy story, but it's just our story back then, though. And so they're in the wilderness, and they again are rebelling against God, and they're living into this condemnation that they're a condemned people already, and God has been saving them, showing them his love. And so God sends judgment in the form of poisonous snakes because they continually rebelled, turned their back against him, sinned against him, ignored him. And people were dying from these snake bites. And there was probably chaos in the camp. Like you would be scared to go to bed. You'd be not wanting to do anything because you're dying from this venom, the poison. And the people are crying out to Moses. The Israelites cry out to Moses because Moses is the spokesperson for God. He talks to God. And God tells Moses, make a bronze snake and put it on a pole. And when you lift that up and the people who've been bitten look to the bronze snake, they will be saved. They will be healed. And I was like thinking, just as I was reading about this, like how long did that go for? How many times did Moses have to raise that bronze snake? How many times did someone have to get bit, be filled with venom and pain, uncertainty, and then have to gaze up and look at this snake in order to be healed from the bite? I can't think of a more comparable reality to our current culture we live in, especially around Christmas. That we live in a venomous culture. Think about that we live in a venomous culture, a poisonous culture. There might be good in this world, yeah. But our lives are like that. We're bit by the things of this world, whether it's greed, addictions, if it's anger. And we're slowly dying from that poison that's running in our veins. And I think in this Christmas season, we almost have this fake reality sometimes of peace and joy because it's just shoved down our throats that you have peace. Oh, peace be with you. Merry Christmas. Hope this is a joyful season. And this verse that we come to, it's a simple verse, but there's so much more behind it. There's so much more behind this reality of Jesus coming, being sent, given. And we know that not everything is okay. Self-help is one of the biggest selling book categories. There's new gyms popping up on every corner because we haven't reached perfection yet. Not that it's wrong to work out. People put their faith in rocks and crystals because they apparently have more healing power. They have more reason to be celebrated than Jesus, more reason to be awed than God. Self-empowerment is a new god of our world. And if we just find our true selves this Christmas season, our true selves, then we'll have joy. Then I'll have peace. Then I'll have contentment. Then I'll be okay. My question for you today that I was asking myself is, what is the poison that quietly, slowly, painfully steals your life? Because there's something there. You're not perfect. Neither am I. That's why we need John 3:16. That's why we need that truth. Because what is the poison that quietly, slowly, painfully steals your life. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. It doesn't say hope in him. It doesn't just say look at him. It doesn't say, oh, just think he's real, whoever believes in him. Believe is faith in action. That's what that means. It can't really mean much else. For God loved in this way, he sent his son. He gave his son. Whoever believes, actively believes in him. Their faith in action in Christ, in his actions, will have eternal life. And that's some good news behind John 3:16. In our culture that's filling us with poison, we look to this verse. And it's pretty classic, but we actually look to the cross as well, because Jesus came, and just as that pole with the bronze snake is lifted up, and the Israelites would gaze up to this pole, and they would be healed of their poison, of the venom, Jesus has come, and he went up twice, up on the cross for our sins, and then up again in resurrection. And when we gaze to Jesus, when we gaze to that free gift of Christ, that's when we receive life. When we gaze there and say, this is the joy of my salvation. This is why I worship. This is why I come to church. This is why I'm in community. This is why I love someone this Christmas. This is how I'm healed. It's nothing we can do, but when we gaze at Christ, who was lifted on that cross, who came out of the grave, that is where we receive our salvation. That is where we receive life. And it's faith in action. It's not just this passing feeling of, that's great, good news. Thanks, Levi. What does your faith look like? Is it moving? Is it changing? Are you growing? I think this Christmas it'd be great if we didn't just blow past God's love. That he came as a baby. That Jesus came. He knew us, understood us. He came at risk, going into the womb of a woman and being born. But the season that we're not just blowing past it. I want us to know it. I want us to share it, receive it, understand joy and grace and patience and peace and kindness. That our identity is from something so deep in our faith that this Christmas, we're not upset about a horrible gift. We're not upset about having horrible things that happen to us while we're shopping. The minuscule things of this world that hurt us. But we have a deep identity in Christ and his love. I just want to finish this. We're doing these shorter sermons for Advent. Just snippets of the truths of the gospel. Of how we can look to Christ as he's raised up in faith. Faith in action. It can save us. It can heal us. It takes that poison out of our veins. I just want to finish by looking at God's love. Because God so loved in this way. And in 1 John 4, 7-10, it talks about God's love. It says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, because love is from God. And everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love. God's love was revealed among us. In this way, God sent his one and only Son into the world, so we might live through him. Love consists in this, not that we love God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. I don't know if you caught that, but this one cut me deep today. The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love. Because God's love is perfect love. Because his love sent the most precious thing. The Word hovered above the waters. Jesus, the light of life, comes to this earth freely given in John 3:16. And the one who does not love, does not know God, does not understand John 3:16, does not receive this love that has been freely given. I couldn't imagine, I'm not a parent or anything, but if you are, you'd probably get this. And this is the classic analogy, but could you give up one of your kids for some random people? I don't think I could give up my wife for some random people. I'm sorry. If they're like, okay, you have to choose the church or your wife, it's a close call. I'm sorry, guys. But it's because I love her, and I don't even understand this kind of love that God has. But we've built memories, experiences, we've built relationship, and I could never just give that away. I don't think I could just give that up. I don't know if you could either. I would question your relationships if you're like, yeah, I don't care. Take it. Take my son or daughter. Take my spouse, my significant other. Take the thing I love most. But that's what God's done. He's given his Son freely. And this cut me because if I do not love, if I don't know love, if I'm not full of grace and peace this season and joy, what's filling me up? And it must be the poison then, because it's not God. And do I know God if I'm filled with poison? Do I know who Jesus is? Do I understand the sacrifice? If I say I've looked to the cross and I've been healed, but I'm not filled with love. And he loved us that his Son would be sent as an atoning sacrifice for our sins this season. And that's actually not just good news for us as a church, it's good news for our community, for our families, for the people we know. And I love how John 3:16 goes into verse 17. It says, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." And if we're love in God, because God is love, what have we condemned this season? What have we condemned that could be saved? That's worth saving. That's worth the effort. What have we condemned that God has said, I actually want you to go back and save that? Because I've come and I've given everything for you. And I've saved you. I've given you purpose. I've given you hope. I've given you healing. Maybe it's a relationship that you've condemned. Someone in your life that you've condemned. That God actually is prodding and saying, I've saved you. Can you save that? Maybe it's joy. I think this is a big one for me. I long for joy, and it always seems to be out of my reach. Do you ever just feel like that? That you're tired, you're broken down, you're just like, this season's supposed to feel good, and sometimes it doesn't. And I just long for this joy. And it's almost as if I've condemned it, and I'm like, I'm never going to experience joy anymore. I'm never going to be able to be happy with what I have. And I've condemned it, and I think God has been challenging me and says, I want you to save joy this season. Because it might not look like what I think it looks like. What have you condemned that could be saved, that God's challenging you to save? John 3:16-17 says, "For God so loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him, everyone who looks to him, looks for life, looks for light. This season, they won't perish, but they'll have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn this world, even though he could. Maybe he should have. My goodness, when I look around sometimes, when I look at myself sometimes, he did not send his Son to condemn this world, but he actually sent him to save the world through him. I just want that to be a reminder this week, this season. How we come to a verse like John 3:16 at face value, but there's so much more behind it. There's so much reason behind it and purpose behind it. That we can know God is love. And when we're in God, we can love others. We can look to Jesus who came as this baby and be saved, be freed from the poison. And instead of condemning the things in our life, we can actually save them the way that Christ has saved us. Let's just pray. God, I just thank you for these truths in this verse. And that you are just such a compassionate, good God that has come and understands us and knows us and just came as a baby and grew in this world. And that you coming and living your life and being lifted up is actually the way we're saved. No, God's love. We just thank you for that, God. I just pray over this season, Lord, as we come to our Christmas service and people go off into their different areas, Lord, that you're just going to be the joy of their salvation. You're going to be their purpose. You're going to be our celebrations. Just empower each and every one of us, God, with your Spirit, with your guiding this season. Amen.